Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Life and Sound podcast. I'm your host, Kid Capone. Today, I have an amazing guest with me, Stoopid Lou. He is a Berlin, Germany-based sample maker and producer who's worked with some of the biggest names in the music industry. He's worked with DaBaby, Summer Walker, Tory Lanez, Trippie Redd, just to name a few. An amazing guitarist, great player. He's released 2 collaborative sample packs, one with Kingsway Music Library with CandyChyld, as well as a collaborative pack with Oscar Zulu. And they're some of the most inspiring packs I've listened to, and I've been a huge fan ever since I first heard Overseas. And he has his own sample packs as well, being released through his website, stoopidlou.com. Lou, how you doing today?
Man, thank you so much for the nice intro. I really like the intonation of that.
Yeah, no problem, man. It's just
it had some
have a lot
grandeur,
of good work.
Thank you so much, man. Really, but like I really have to say, I'm not the best guitar player. I'm just really good at editing, you know.
Definitely.
I can fake my way around, you know.
Hey, you could have fooled me.
Hey, that's good enough.
I love it. All right, so we'll kind of start with some of the easier questions before we move into some of the technical stuff later. So it'll just be an easy conversation, nothing crazy, just here to have a good chat with you.
Let's go.
Excellent. Where did you get your name as an artist and as a brand?
I started making beats when the first A$AP Rocky mixtape came out, one with the Purple Swag and Pesos on there.
Yeah.
And a couple of the songs were produced by Beautiful Lou, and I loved how they sounded. And yeah, I was like taking a good look in the mirror, and I was like, I guess I'm not beautiful. So I came up with the name Stoopid Lou, because like that mixtape sort of inspired me to start, you know, taking beats seriously. And I love the production on that record. I still do. So yeah, Beautiful Lou, Stoopid Lou. That's sort of like the origin of that name.
I love that. And what are some of your future plans for yourself and your brand right now at the moment?
I'm trying to get some more songs on my own. You know, like as a sample maker, I guess, you know, like we're always sort of like dependent on the people who are in the studio, locked in with the artist. And we're just sort of on the sidelines. We're at home making samples, singing out via email. And I want to make sure like I can establish my own connections to artists, go to studio sessions. And because sometimes it feels like we're getting lucky with like placements via email. It doesn't feel like you have like so much control over it. Yeah, you always feel like you're kind of on the sidelines, and I want to be able to, you know, build like an infrastructure and like connections and a skill set that is really, you know, useful and important if you're in sessions, like getting good at songwriting, getting good at mixing, you know, just trying to branch out from the sound design sample game more into like a fully grown producer.
Yes.
So I guess that's the plan for the next year, I guess. Just get really good at piano, guitar, songwriting, engineering, and then, you know, move fully into the industry and, you know, try to become my own producer.
I love that. Are you practicing daily and kind of using your sample packs as a way to hone your craft with your instruments?
Yeah, for sure. I think like a new sample pack, when I start a new sample pack, it's always like a nice opportunity to really log in. And, you know, I just started like a new R&B pack, and I noticed like my guitar playing wasn't, you know, refined enough for, you know, beautiful R&B licks. So I just got like this pickup guitar website where you can just, you know, learn guitar from like session players or whatever.
Oh, nice.
Just like video courses. And then I just try to do like 50-minute at least every day, you know, 50 minutes of piano playing every day. Nothing crazy, but just like, you know, small steps every day to, you know, up the game a little bit.
Definitely. All those small increments of time really do add up, though, and it's more so the frequency. I always felt like it's better to do, you know, 15 minutes a day, 6 or 7 days a week than it is to try and just get 2 hours in 1 day a week, because it really makes all the difference.
Yeah, I recently, change my workout from like 2 to 3 days a week, 40, 50 minutes to at least 10 minutes a day. And I'm seeing like way more progress that way. So I think the same goes for, music. If you do it like daily or like 6 days a week, it's definitely like faster growth than, doing like these excessive sessions every 2 to 3 days.
Yeah, definitely. Again, it's that whole frequency type of thing. It really makes it adds up in the end. You end up having more sessions and things like that. I know I believe he's an MMA fighter, and his name is Farah Sahabi, and his whole approach is whenever he does his workouts and things like that, he never goes like red line. He never goes 100%. He always says like, I go 80% effort, but I do a session every day. So by the end of the year, that guy who's doing 100% effort 4 days a week, he only has about 60% of the frequency of workouts I've done. So I'm ready by the time I hit the ring. I've already been in these crazy situations, and I've already built this like habit up of doing it daily. So I really think there's value in that.
And also I feel like same with exercise and music. If you exhaust yourself by going like 10 hours or whatever, on the music side, or like pushing yourself in the gym for like 2 hours until, you're kind of exhausted, it really, makes it less likely that you're going to sit down the next day because you feel like you need some rest. And I feel like a good 6 hours of focused work is like every single day is much more valuable than 12 hours every 2 days, because like you just like sitting down more because it doesn't feel like, oh my God, I'm about to, knock myself out. It's just like, I'm just going to mess around. I'm just going to have fun. So yeah, like I'm like definitely big on daily fun work, like concentrated, focused work more than, pushing myself every day 12 hours until I hate music.
Well said. I mean, you definitely don't want to burn yourself out, especially in something that's creative as music is,
For sure. Like when I started, I was so hungry. I was doing like 12 hours every day, and I definitely like ran into like a sort of burnout situation. And it's hard to recover. Like it's hard to get back in touch with your passion. If like once it's gone, it's really hard to rekindle that flame. So now I'm like very, very careful to only make music, until I feel like I don't like what I'm doing anymore. So that's usually like a good sign for me to, hit the pause button and, live life.
Yeah, definitely scale it back a little bit. Your body is definitely giving you the signals that you're going too hard or like too much, and you don't want to burn yourself out at all.
Yeah, for sure.
How would you say your relationship with music has changed now versus when you were a kid?
That's a good question. Maybe it's hard for me to not analyze music and like everything that's behind it. Like when I was not making music for a living, I was just like listening to songs and like, yeah, this is nice. And that's like the only thought I had. Now it's like, man, it sounds a little overcompressed, and I wonder how the reverb works, and I wonder what guitar tone they are using. And it's strange that the bridge is only like 6 bars instead of 8. You try to you tend to overanalyze everything, and that's definitely like something that's shifted. And like I'm always looking for inspiration. And like, I used to just have like great moments in records, and I would just like enjoy them. And now whenever I hear a great moment, I'm like, what makes this moment great? Like, oh, they changed the chord for the first time in the chorus. That's why it's so grand. And then I try to get up my notepad and like make notes of, what creates a musical moment. And so like, even when I'm in a cafe or something and I listen to something, I'm like, oh, that was unique. I have to, so I'm just very, it's a difficult situation, but I still enjoy music, but like it definitely like my analyzing part of the brain definitely like it's hard to switch off at this point.
Yeah, I would definitely understand that. I'm similar to that, especially I feel like when you're deep in music and you're, trying to make a living off of it or it's your career and your life, it's not like you're just casually listening to anything anymore. You're hearing it, you're like, what minor seventh chords are they using? Or at the bridge, how did they change keys so fluidly? What is the tone? Like, is it a Stratocaster or is it a humbucker pickup? All the different effects, like what pedals are they using? So I definitely understand that. And it's funny, you almost become like over analytical in a way of the music you're listening to, because like you said, you know, you hear something, you say, oh, that's over compressed, or I can hear that the whole song is not necessarily clipping, but I can hear that it's pumping every time the limiter is being squashed, like little things like that.
Yeah, for sure.
How did your collaboration with Oscar Zulu happen for the Overseas Music Library pack? It's one of those packs that's still inspiring me now, and I really listen to it even regularly. It's just something that I'll listen to because I love it so much. And I was always really curious about, you know, how that collaboration came about and even like how you stacked and layered those guitar parts, because I love the whole sound of that pack.
Thank you so much, man. Really means a lot. I think Oscar and we just connected over Insta DM, like back in the day when the sample maker game was like so saturated. When there was like a handful of people doing it, you know, like God bless Eli, Mario Luciano. So it was like fairly easy to pick out like the 20, 30 people doing it. So we just connected and talked about like how many samples we would put in packs if we sent them out to other producers. Like, I'm putting in 10, I'm usually putting only a 5. Sort of like, you know, exchanging our, you know, ideas. And then very naturally we started sending ideas back and forth, until we had like 3-4 samples and we're like, maybe this is enough, maybe this is good enough for a pack. Then we just worked until we had like 12 samples. And then we just continued to work and like threw out like all of the ones that we didn't like, but we kept it at 12. So like whenever we added a 13th sample, we would throw out like one of the previous samples that we didn't like. And we did that for like a couple of weeks until we were like, I think this is a nice pack. And the timing was like really great because Oscar had just released his first Kingsway pack.
Oh, excellent.
And, you know, like drum broker is kind of hard to get into. And I didn't know if I could get in, even though it was like 2-3 years ago when there weren't like that many people hitting him up for submissions, I guess. It was still fairly hard to get in there, but like with Oscar's Kingsway credit, we just hit up Drumbrook and we're like, yo, we got this collab pack with Oscar, the Kingsway dude, and like this, you know, German, whatever. And luckily, he accepted and put it on there, and I think the pack did really well. And for the guitars, I don't really know. Probably RC20 back in the day.
Yeah.
I guess. And Waves plugins. I think that's all that I had back in the days. I think I was still playing Thinline, a Fender Thinline. It's
okay.
With a hollow body, whatever situation. Sort of Western twangy humbucker sound. So I think that's maybe the way the guitar sound, because these days I'm using mostly this guitar right here, a Squire, and that has like a sort of different sound.
Yeah.
But for the processing, it was mostly, you know, like standard compressors, waves, and detune.
Of course, the essentials.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I listen to that pack and I hear those guitars, like how they're stacked, did you record kind of like single line parts and then you'd add like another line on top of that and then maybe like those little top accents in the higher register? Or because it doesn't sound like it's very much like chords per se, you know? It seems like a lot of stacked melodies.
Yeah, I think like what I like about this about the sample pack is if you play guitars, you know, your hands tend to fall into the same positions. You know, it's like so natural just to play the same chords over and over again because it's muscle memory.
Yes.
And for this pack, I wanted to do something different. So I recorded or like came up with the ideas in a piano roll or in MIDI or on the piano. And then I just like replayed the piano parts or replayed the MIDI parts on guitar. So as to avert, playing the same stuff over and over again. So I think like some of the magic of that pack is that it's not natural guitar progressions. It's sort of like piano or MIDI progressions played on a guitar.
Wow.
Which sounds a little bit, off maybe. But I think that's where, the sort of like weird character of the guitar on that sample pack comes from.
Yeah, it definitely shines through that whole pack. That was something that like stuck out to me. I hear it and they didn't sound at all like typical guitar loops I've ever heard. I heard it and I was like, how do you come up with writing these parts? These are incredible,
Yeah, it took me some figuring out, like they sound nice on the piano and then you have to, oh my God, this is like, you can't even,
shape the chord.
Yeah, shape the chord and then you have to, stretch into like 2-3 layers and figure out how to, add them. So that's why it sounds like so messy and so weird, because it's not like something that your hand is even capable of doing if you play it with one hand.
I love that. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like some of my favorite sample packs with guitars like always come from a place where maybe the guitarist or the musician isn't the best traditional guitar player, but they come up with a creative approach to do it. I remember when I took Al Hugg's sample class, one of the things he told me is when he was first picking up guitar, he said, I'm not really great at guitar. I'm good at piano. I'm not great at guitar. So I kind of approach the guitar in a way where I think of the top 3 strings as one instrument, and I think of the bottom 3 strings as a separate instrument. And then I just try to stack those two together.
Al is a legend, man. I love the dude.
Yeah, he's the man. Super phenomenal musician, sample maker, awesome dad, just great dude overall.
Quality individual, for sure. Yeah, I think like sometimes being limited in their capabilities can add some, sauce to your music, because you have to figure out how to work around it.
I definitely would agree.
Yeah, so like to all the, guitar players just starting out, don't worry about it. As long as you're good at editing, you got this.
Yeah, you're good to go. How did your collaborative pack with CandyChyld come about, and what parts did you kind of compose inside of that sample pack? Because it seems like it was more than just guitars for you in that pack.
Yeah, for sure. That was a weird situation. I think he just sent me some samples way back, and I was just like, yeah, it's like another producer trying to send samples. And usually, like when I'm working on my own samples and I don't really make beats, I don't like listen to the stuff that people send me. But like every 3 months when I'm like in beat making mode or whatever, or I'm looking for inspiration, I just go through like all of the like 20-30 packs that people have sent me in the meantime. And I found this one pack and I was like, holy shit, this is like the most insane stuff I've ever heard. But there was no label on it. And then I had to go on Instagram, post a story, and was like, yo, who sent me this sample pack? This is insane. So like CandyChyld reached out and said, hey, it's mine. And I don't know what to tell you. Like this guy is the best producer in the world, hands down.
I love it.
Like it's incredible what this guy is doing. Like we text almost daily, and like he sends me like the craziest house song. And he was like, I just made this 50 minutes ago just to fuck around. And it's like the best house song I ever heard. And then he like 20 minutes later, it's like an EDM bang. And he was just like, I was so bored of making trap. And it's like the nicest EDM song ever. So, or like singer-songwriter ballads. Like this guy does it all.
That's incredible.
And yeah, he's like I think like in the next 10 years, he's definitely like going to be one of the top 3 producers worldwide. He's just like out of this world talented. And I think when he sent those samples, that was sort of shine through. I sort of had the idea that this is like very like musical, and it just felt like way different than anything else I heard that day. Like going through 20, 30 samples, they tend to sound, it's like trap loops,
Yes.
They tend to have
A
certain
similar sound.
Yeah. And like his stuff was just like so unique and musical. And I just reached out to him. And yeah, we just passed ideas back and forth, just working on music, and like making the sample pack really was an idea until, like with Oscar, until we had like 3-4 ideas that we really liked, and we were like, maybe we should do a pack. Then we did the pack, and for the night, my guy, he said maybe, because we were in a group chat with like loop makers, and I was like, man, I want to get on Kingsway. And he said, if you have a pack ready, just send it over. I can, send it to Kingsway. Maybe it's good enough. So we finished the Kingsway, the CandyChyld pack. We just sent it over to Fortnite. Fortnite passed it on, and Kingsway reached out. And I was jumping up in my room because like that was a dream of mine. Like when I got into music, I always said like I want a Grammy, I want a Kingsway pack, and maybe like a song with Drake.
Yeah.
But like it's really because like I started making samples because of the Kingsway libraries. So when that happened, that was a dream come true. Like there was a time where I was listening to more Kingsway libraries than actual rap music or whatever. I was just like obsessed.
I'm in that stage right now.
Yeah, that was a huge moment. And as for the music, I'm not sure. Like, it was a really nice process with CandyChyld. We just would like I would send like a guitar idea, and he would send like the craziest flip back, and then I would just add stuff and flip the sample again, and then just send it back. And he would flip it and add stuff and send it back. And like all of the ideas that ended up on the final pack have been like vastly different songs or ideas like 4 versions before. We just kept, going crazy and crazier. And that was a really fun process. So yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, for sure.
I love the idea of, each time the sample goes back and forth, it almost becomes a new song each time. And everybody's just putting their all into, putting their stamp on each version of it and really trying to push the sample in a new place, not just settling with like the basic stems that you got the first time through. And there's a lot of value in that, definitely.
Especially like with CandyChyld, there was like this great, friendly competition. Because he would send me like some of the craziest ideas I'd ever heard, and I was like, man, I gotta somehow up my game to even be able to, keep up with this guy. Yeah. So I tried to do like the weirdest shit that I was capable of doing, send it back, and then he made it even crazier. I was like, oh my God, okay, I guess I have to, And that was a really nice process, just to be with someone who's, pushing yourself to be more creative.
Definitely. What were some things that you felt like you learned through that process, or some things that like maybe some processing techniques or ways that you pushed your creativity to a new place?
I think like CandyChyld has like incredibly detailed textures, but like musical, they're not like there to fill in the blanks. They have like a very unique, watery, beautiful sound, but they still serve a purpose. And I thought going into the pack that my textures were like sometimes just to fill, the spaces and to, make people say, oh, like, he's good at sound design. But like they didn't really serve like an emotional component, like and yeah, I think like CandyChyld definitely taught me how to add space, like add textures that still are like an essential part of the emotion of the sample. So that's definitely like something that I learned, to use textures not to fill the sample, but to give them a purpose, I guess.
I love that. They feel more like an essential piece of the recipe than just a filler.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you feel that collaboration has been an essential part in your growth in making samples?
Oh, for sure, 100%. I think like it's definitely in this world like the company you keep, and having people that inspire you. People, I just watched a video, your interview with Came1.
Yes, thank you.
Before, I was asking, is your shit on Spotify? Or
So I was going through a period of time recently where I had little to no money. I had quit my job and I was living pretty much off of cryptocurrency the past like 6 or 7 months.
that's cool.
And yeah, it's just, I was blessed. I made the right decision at the right time, like a year and a half ago. And instead of me wanting to spend all of it, I decided I just recently got a job again, part-time, about a week ago. And I didn't have any money to pay for, there's this thing called Anchor, and it allows you to upload your podcast to every platform. So now that I'm making money again, they're all going on Spotify. They're going on
Let's
to
go.
everything.
Let's go.
And in the meantime, I just wanted to make sure also, like, I wanted to funnel it to my YouTube in a way. It's like the only place you could go watch these was on YouTube. And I know it's kind of, it's a double-edged sword in a way, but they're definitely going all on all the streaming services very soon.
Okay, perfect. I'm stoked. So I was watching the K1 interview, and he was like, he always listens to like all of the motive stuff or whatever, Mario stuff when he's dropping new stuff. And I think like this thought of I want to be able to compete is like definitely something that's, if you have like friends who really push you, who are amazing musicians, and they just send you like a beat they made, and it's like the best shit you ever heard, and like the mix is crisp. It definitely does something to you to be able to be, I want to earn being in this company. So I think like, having inspiring, hardworking friends is like one of the best ways, to stay motivated, I guess. And also, talking to people about, their approaches to sound design always helps. You can always, just by talking to people, what they look for, more so than a specific, technical stuff. Sometimes it's, if you ask them, what makes a great sample for you, like all of these, just, having conversations is like just as important as collaborating on the music.
Definitely.
So yeah, I think, I wouldn't be here like where I am if I didn't work with like incredibly talented musicians and talk to incredibly talented musicians every single day. I think, especially in this day and age, especially in the hip hop R&B world, it's a collaborative sport, and there's only so much you can do on your own. So it's really important to work with other people.
I agree. And I mean, that's even one of the foundations of my podcast was I loved sample making so much when I had like discovered it and gotten into it. And I was curious because these musicians, it wasn't just hip hop beats anymore. These were people who were doing music with no drums, sometimes with no bass, and they were blowing me away. I was hearing textures and sounds I had never heard before. And I remember just having the feeling of, I wish there was a platform where these guys could talk about their process and reveal some of their tricks of the trade and just be able to share their perspective on music. And I felt like there was a need to be filled. So that's why I started the whole podcast and why I interview. I don't care if you have one pack out. I don't care if you have no packs out. If you make music that inspires me and you're a sample maker, I want to talk to you.
God bless you. It's really nice to, listen to other people talk about this. As much for the source, like how they record guitars and shit, but like also how they structure their day, what daily habits they have, what, health routines they have, what, bigger picture ideas they have about the music industry. So it's really, really nice, to, especially like if you live in this small bubble.
Yes.
It's really nice to have listen to the people that inspire you. So thank you so much for this podcast, man.
I appreciate that. That means the world to me, and it really gets me excited because, like I want to know about these people's lives inside and outside of music, because it's a holistic thing. Music isn't just a piece of your life; it's usually a part of a bigger whole. Like, what do you do on your daily habits that makes your music great? And are there things that you're maybe doing that are hindering you? If you're feeling writer's block, could it be something simple like you're drinking too much coffee? I know it was like that for me. I had to stop drinking coffee so much because I felt like I got very over analytical with some of the music, and it almost stopped me from working. And it's not necessarily like that for everyone, I'm aware. But for me, that was just something I noticed and something I wanted to share with people, where maybe they would feel inspired, like, maybe I'll give up coffee for 2 weeks, see how I feel, and see where it takes my music. So definitely something I'm trying to, a narrative I want to show the world is good habits end up making great musicians, and just focusing on the right things will take you far.
For sure. Like good daily habits are like 80% of what makes a career.
I agree. What was your process like for creating your Pisces Guitar Library sample packs?
Just getting up in the morning and trying to make like one idea per day. That was basically my whole goal for as long as, I had 15 ideas or something that I was happy with. And then, like we talked, I think, prior to actually starting the recording with the a cappella.
Yes.
So I would just make beats and drag in acapellas, and then I would make their own samples, and then like my own samples to the beat in a cappella, and then just mute the beat in a cappella and just bounce out the sample that I made.
I love that.
So that pack was more, because it was made with like specific beats in mind, it was fairly, like trap, finished song, sort of, that was the vibe of the pack. Whereas the Kingsway pack, it's more like, how can I make, incredible musical compositions and incredible moments and sound design and stuff. With this pack, I just wanted to give people something useful, like something where they just have to drag the WAV file in their project, add drums, and they're good to go. Like the mixing should be, with vocals in mind. So that was like the intention behind that. Just give people like a pack where they can just draw
plug and play.
Yeah, make it easy as easy as possible, because everyone can make samples these days. So you really have to make sure you're providing some value for them.
Definitely.
And sort of my value add was just like clean, usable guitars for that pack. Yeah.
Yeah, they were great, and you can definitely hear like the ease of use if you're a producer with that pack. Like they are definitely set up so you can plug them in, start cooking up easily. You don't have to overthink, and you're reliably going to get a great product in the end.
Thank you so much, man.
Of course. What is your daily routine like? You touched on making at least one good idea or sample per day to make that pack. How does your daily routine or your weekly routine kind of flow for you to enable that?
I mean, that's the big question, that I struggle with like daily. I think like generally I get up, I don't know, at 9. I'm a lazy person. I'm not like one of those early risers like Cam1. And then I just make a coffee and like I take a long ass breakfast, like 1 hour, 2 hour, I just chill out. And because I think it's really important to like ease into the day and be like in a good spirit.
Yes.
And I'm like fortunate enough where I don't have to, get, crazy right after waking up. Then I try to do like 10 minutes at least of working out, like yoga or running or weightlifting stuff, just to get the blood flow going. And then like once I'm like settled into the day and like at peace or whatever, then I just start making music. And because like as a musician, there's like so much stuff you can do, like working on your website, networking, responding to emails, talking to your manager, whatever. And it's really easy to get like lost in all of and like there's endless opportunities, some A&Rs hit you for a pack, and then you just work on, figuring out what the best samples for Don Toliver might be, and I just recently realized that, what pays my bills, what heats the jacuzzi is music.
Yes.
So right now, like my goal every single day is to make one piece of music that I'm proud of. Doesn't necessarily have to be like the best, perfect, but just like something, if it were released, I would be okay. I wouldn't like heavily cringe.
That's well said, though. I feel like that's very important to realize, even that just creating something you're proud of every day it's the great intention, and those phenomenal, groundbreaking samples will come through the more consistent you are by doing them daily.
Yeah, for sure. So like I'm not like chasing perfection or like my great masterpiece every single day, but just like something that makes me go like, nice, I made this. Like just like one idea, whether it's a sample, whether it's a beat. And like once I got that out the way, then I think about, are there emails I have to respond to? Are there, other opportunities that I might, take advantage of? But there was like some weeks where I just got lost in all of the opportunities, and I was doing so much stuff that wasn't music related. So now it's music first, and once that is figured out, I'm thinking about the business, and I'm thinking about like all of the other shit. Sometimes these days end like with me making music until it's like, I start late, but I work fairly late. So like I start at, I don't know, like 11 maybe, and then like try to get like very focused work until, like 10 in the evening. But like sometimes if I feel like it's not working, I'm not making great music, I just do like some emails and then I just call it a day.
Yeah.
And go out and live life. Cause like I said, if you push yourself too much to make music, just to churn out like factory line type of samples every single day for like 12 hours, you just lose the passion, and that just usually translates into the music. Like if you lost the passion for what you're doing, it sort of sounds like it ends up making, you end up making generic music. So if I find myself, not being happy with the stuff that I'm making, I just call it a day, respond to some emails, think about ways to increase my income or whatever, go on Reddit crypto and see what the next new trend is.
Smart.
Watch some, podcasts or whatever. I just, like you can still, do some stuff for your career, even if it doesn't feel like work, just watching interviews, watching Kanye documentaries, making playlists with stuff that inspires you.
Yes.
Stuff that, still somehow works towards you becoming like a better musician or whatever, but it doesn't necessarily have to feel like work,
I agree. How did you touched a little bit on sending music to different A&Rs looking for packs and things, and then you also touched a little bit on having a manager. How did you transition, or what made you decide that you needed a manager, or did that kind of naturally come about?
I think like I was just like constantly overstimulated with all of the opportunities coming my way. I mean, it's a beautiful situation if people hit you for music. I'm incredibly thankful for every DM I get with like people who send me like, yo, let's work, send samples, whatever. But it comes to a point where if you were to respond to every single DM, and like some of these guys, they have like placements, they have shit going on. So it might be like a smart idea to seize on opportunity. But there was just like a point where I just couldn't keep up. And then like I had to, network and send out stuff, but I also had to make the music to send out.
Yes.
And then I had to also chase like the labels for my cash, which is like a huge topic. And then I was also in university, and I was like, I can't balance everything at the same time. And I think like, definitely having some songs out for like 12 months, 24 months, that I haven't been paid for, that was like a huge factor for me to go with management, because I was like, I just want to make music. I just sent like, I don't know, like my 13th email to this accounting at Universal just to get paid for this one song. And it's taken up so much of my time just to chase like the cash. And I was like, this is not really, what I'm doing it for. So I wanted to have like people who do the annoying stuff so I can focus on the music. because like they're really good at that stuff, and I'm like, I'm not good at that stuff. I'm much better at music. So yeah.
I love that. That's really smart to delegate the kind of business side of things to allow you to freely create and be the artist that you want to be, because it's hard to do everything all at once. It's hard to be,
For sure.
your own business manager, your own creative director, and the musician. And then on top of that, it's hard when the song has already been out and you're still not receiving what you're entitled to, or not even entitled to, but what you deserve for your work on the project. Those songs wouldn't have been anything if you hadn't have been able to create and put in the work. And I hope that's a narrative that's shifting soon, with labels paying out the people, because at the end of the day, there would be no record if it wasn't for sample makers and producers out there putting in all the effort on the ground floor.
Yeah, I definitely hope that, things change as well, because you wouldn't, have someone do a kitchen renovation for you and not pay them. It's like, it's the only industry where we're, regularly not paid for the work that we did.
Yeah.
And like, even being painted as the bad guy, if you say like, yo, why am I not being paid,
It's backwards.
It's really backwards. And like, I feel like it's the only industry where that is even possible. Like I had a hard time explaining to my parents, getting my own platinum record and not having any cash. They were like, what?
How does that work? Where's the correlation there?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Doesn't really sound like you're running a viable business right there, my man.
It's not on your fault though. You're doing everything you can on your part, and it's hard when somebody else is holding up the check that's supposed to be in your bank account.
And also like with the first couple placements, you're so new in this industry and you have to jump to a lot of hoops to get paid, Just setting up all of your accounts like BMI, Sound Exchange, like the Uniport, if you ever place the song on Universal, you have to register on their own like accounting system, internal accounting system. And just even collecting your royalties feels like, I just finished university and that shit was easier than collecting my money. It's like, you have to.
Well said.
Yeah, you have to jump to so many hoops, especially as a young, unexperienced producer. It's really hard. But, you live and you learn. You get screwed over once, twice, 3 times. But then, you sort of get the hang of it. You sort of know who to ask. And, figure it out.
It's good that having a manager definitely makes that easier, I'm sure.
For sure. It's like, I'm so happy that I finally found someone. Especially because, like, it's such an intimate relationship.
Yes.
And it's, like a bad manager can break you and like a good manager can make you.
Well said.
And also like they represent you to the outside world. So I always wanted to have someone where I know, they have the right values and they're not like the same industry people that I hate working with. I wanted to have someone who, and like the guy I ended up with, Isaac, shout out Isaac, I got to know him through Boslin. I made like a couple of songs with Boslin, a Canadian artist, really fire. And I had the paperwork and the payment like 2 months before release, which is like super rare in this industry. And I was like, this is the guy that I want to have representing me. I want someone who does like good business, reliable, just like has the right values to represent you to the outside world.
Definitely. He's on your team.
Yeah, for sure. And now like when he's, talking to labels, I know he's being, as aggressive as he needs to be, but he's not like a Hollywood kind of dickhead who's just like, my producer's the center of the world, pay him, type shit, but just like, guys, we agreed on this in a contract. Let's not make this ugly.
Yes.
It's like I know he's representing me in a very professional, value-based manner,
I love that. Yeah, there's definitely a level of respect there. It seems like he communicates with, it's, we agreed to these terms. Here's the paperwork. There's no point in fussing and fighting or beating around the bush. all we gotta do is complete the payment, and then we'll all be happy, and we can continue having a good business relationship.
Yeah, for sure. Like, there's a lot of, like, annoying people in the industry, and he's definitely like not one of those Hollywood cokeheads.
There's a lot of them.
Boy, let me tell you.
No, I love that. And as far as, A&Rs kind of dealing with them or working with them, is that something where you're sending samples to the A&R for certain producers and those kind of things? Or what are they looking for exactly?
It's different every time. Like, some people hit me up for beats, some people hit me up for samples for like writing session with the artist in the studio. And some are just working with like other producers. And then like this producer is going to a session next week with like whoever, send like some samples to me, I pass it on. So it's like every A&R just asks for different shit. And then you just, it's a time-consuming thing. Like, if you take these A&Rs seriously and they hit you up for a pack, it always takes like, a good amount of minutes to go through your stuff to make sure it's, tailored to their specific needs. But yeah, it's different. It's different every time.
I like that though. It's a good thing to be aware of, because I wasn't even fully aware myself of how the A&Rs would communicate with sample makers for writing sessions and those kind of things. And that's, initially for someone like me who's not experienced in the industry as deep, your basic perception is I make samples, I send them to producers, they end up being songs. Whereas it seems like there's even other ways, not just through a producer making the beat and making the song, but sending the sample to somebody to write to, and maybe the producer is making it with the artist in one session.
For sure. Also, there's like a lot of artists who know how to record themselves and produce themselves these days. So if you have like some artists that make their own beats, you can always, slide them samples. So like this world is expanding, I guess, has been expanding in the last couple of months into like a whole new, there's like so many opportunities, even like sing stuff just from like samples. So, you can pretty much do whatever, it's great.
I love it. I recently listened to the Elijah Blonde project that you had done the guitars on, Immortal. I had never even heard of him, and then once I saw you post it, I said, I'm gonna go check out this project, and I've been listening to the project like since it came out, and I really love the work you did on Immortal. It was a great song.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I really love that one too. It's done by my boy Max. Like, he co-produced the song, and it's always nice when people get the idea.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you send people samples and you get like,
Ooh,
beats
I don't know if I love it.
Yeah, you're like, I'm not sure I see the same version, type situation.
Yes.
But like Max, bodied that sample and turned it into like a whole, song. So yeah, like we said earlier, it's like this collaboration and people taking what you have and taking it to another level. So yeah, shout out to Elijah, shout out to Max. I'm really happy with the song.
Definitely, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of a new artist I discovered through you. So thank you for that.
Hey.
Are
Shout out Elijah.
Are there any tricks or production techniques you have that make your creation process quicker and easier for you?
I think like maybe saving channel strips. So like sometimes when I don't feel like creative, I just make sounds. Like I plug in my guitar and then just figure out like what is a nice 70s guitar tone. And then I just go through like plugins and amps and compressors for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
Until I have something that sounds nice. Then I just save the preset. And like whenever I want to have like a 70s guitar sound, I can just open like the entire preset with like all of the effects. And that is definitely like something that makes life a lot easier. If you have like a library of, sounds that you keep coming back to. And the other thing, definitely like something that Cam once said in the interview, is getting rid of all the stuff that you don't use.
Yes.
I think that's a huge, because like it's so easy to get lost in all of the 100 million sounds that you can possibly use. So I think, limiting my option is always something that makes the process much easier, because I don't have to scroll through, like 200 plugins. Yeah, it's just like the stuff that I use. And yeah, I think that's a huge one.
I would agree. I definitely do the saving presets as well in Ableton. If I ever come across a great effect chain or something, or if I make a certain instrument or a pad sound that I really like, I'll save that whole instrument and the effect chain as a preset. And even like you said about limiting your options, I know when I interviewed Timmy Holiday, one of the things that he told me is he's been trying to make samples with just 3 tracks and seeing how much he could do with only 3 tracks. And he says it's a lot harder than you'd think to make like a full composition with just those 3 individual things, because you really need to kind of think outside the box and get creative with your layout of the sample versus just how many layers you can stack.
Yeah, for sure. I think like limitations are incredible to push yourself creatively.
I would definitely agree. About how long does it take you to put a sample pack together, and how do you know when it's finished?
That's a good question. Usually 12 months longer than I anticipated.
Yeah.
If I say like I want to drop like we're in April right now. If I were to say like I want to drop a pack in May, and really sat down and really worked to get a good sample every single day, I probably wouldn't finish the pack until like December. Because like I told you, it's always about like you have those 12 ideas, and like once you continue to record, you like a new idea better than the old one, you just throw out the old one. And that's a process that can continue forever until like in the pack there's no more of the original samples.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really comes down to how competitive I get. But yeah, I think like the shortest I ever took for the Pisces Guitar Library was like maybe 1.5 months. So that was like, I don't know, I made like 40 samples maybe. And then just chose the best 15 ones or whatever.
Nice.
But like with the CandyChyld one, I think we took maybe a year. So yeah, it really comes down to, how, and also like the mode of releasing it. Like if I release it on my own website, I'm like, okay, this is good enough for me. But like if I release it on Kingsway, I'm like, okay, I have to, be on the same level as all of the other packs on Kingsway. So then, sort of depends on, the context, I guess.
Yeah. Do the samples that maybe don't end up in the pack, do they end up finding a home in other ways?
For sure. Like I always try to send out the stuff that I don't put in my public packs. But like some stuff I just keep on my hard drive, there was a time when I was like another man's trash, like one man's trash is another man's come up, like
it's true.
Maybe like some ideas that I don't, especially like I had some placements coming up with like stuff that I almost didn't send out. So like I still, send out most of my stuff. But I also had like some stuff coming out with like ideas that I didn't really feel like sending out. And then I had some songs come out with like stuff that I just didn't really like, and I was like, it's more important to me to have like songs that I'm proud of than to just collect, songs for the sake of it.
Yes.
So now like the bare minimum for me is like, would I be proud or would it make me cringe if that were released on a Drake song,
Yeah.
Or whatever, like a huge, like something that the whole world hears. And if I'm like, man, I don't even want Drake on this. This is just like embarrassing. Then I just keep it on my hard drive. But if I'm like, maybe in the right hands. So yeah.
I love that. That's a great perspective on the situation. Definitely, like, would I be proud of this, or would this make me cringe if this was released on a world scale? That's a good barometer of how you feel about a sample. And making samples is always so interesting because I feel like, I've only put out one public pack, and with that pack, there was things in there that when I was creating them, I was thinking like, oh yeah, this is going to be these certain samples, like these particular 3 or 4 are definitely gonna be the ones that get flipped or like get used really well. And then people end up really liking the ones that you're like, that one was in the pack. It wasn't even my favorite. I put it in the pack because it was good, but it wasn't even my favorite sample in there.
For sure.
And people end up flipping that or loving that one. Or you hear somebody say, oh, that sample's crazy. And you're thinking, really? Like, that wasn't even the one I thought was the craziest or I put the most effort into. But it's definitely
so
everybody's
weird,
taste.
Yeah. It's so weird that we never really... Because I always think like I'm a great A&R. You know, I always feel like I have great taste. But like, it's never the beats that I think it is. It's never the samples that I think it is. You know, it's like people always choose the stuff that I'm not like, that's not my favorite stuff. But yeah, we're all just like super subjective, and especially like if it's your own creation, you know. Also, I also feel like maybe like something about like the process might influence how you feel about it. Because like if you know, oh, making this piano sound this way took like 3 hours, I'm super proud of it. But like the idea, like the musical idea, is not that strong, you know. Like you still love the sample because you know what goes on behind the scenes, and like people who don't know how long it took, people who don't know how many tracks you have in a sample, they just go for whatever feels right.
Yes.
And I think that's something that I have to remind myself of. Cause like I had songs come out with like one Omnisphere Bell preset. Mm-hmm. That was the entire sample. Like just
that's
like
amazing.
One track of Omnisphere Bells. So yeah, people don't really care what you did at home. Like they only care if it, you know, if it makes them feel something.
Definitely well said. Do you ever smoke or drink alcohol or coffee or anything when you're creating? It seems like you said you drank coffee still a little bit.
Yeah. Always like a huge cup of coffee in the morning just to get the gears going. And then if I'm in a good spirit, usually like at like 5 in the afternoon, I'm like drinking a coffee for like the second shift until like 10 or something in the evening. But if I feel like, no, today is not one of those music days, you know, I just whatever, it's whatever. Alcohol, I try not to do it too much on the weekends, I guess. And weed, I just recently stopped because it made me like a little bit foggy. And also I never smoke and I never drink when I make music.
Nice.
I mean, there's like some people who get really creative, and I get that it maybe stops like the overthinking part of your brain. But to me, when I made music drunk or stoned and I listened back the next morning, I was like, man, this is trash. My brain was lying to me. Yeah, in the evening, I was like, man, I'm the shit. And then like listening back sober in the morning was just like a very humbling experience. So yeah, I try not to create when I'm, you know, have taken any substances.
Yeah, I definitely struggled with that for a long time. Like I grew up in Southern California, you know, one of the marijuana capitals of the world. And from when I was 15 or so up until about 3 months ago, or 4 months now. Yeah, 4 months ago, I stopped. And in these 4 months, I feel like I've had more clarity and like peace of mind, and just my energy is way more calm, and I feel I'm able to process things, not overanalyze as much. Just it's actually making my process of creation quicker. And even when I go out now, it's more fun for me not to be intoxicated or anything, because I feel it's easier to talk to people. I'm finding myself more social. I can remember people's names more, you know, all the little things that you don't necessarily think of in the moment when you're out just having a good time, because your intentions are good. You're like, I'm trying to be more creative. I'm trying to have more fun and these things. It's not like you're doing it from a bad place, but I can definitely say the change that I made has made a lot of my creation easier, the interviews easier to, I'm more willing to work with people or like talk with them and share my perspective on things. So I definitely think there's value in both, and it's just all in the intention.
Yeah, for sure. I think like everyone who's, you know, using stuff should occasionally like do just like 2-3 weeks.
Yes.
Pauses, and just to see if they do it out of habit or because they really like it and really, you know, they do it for like with an intention. Because like for me, like a lot of the weed and alcohol, it just became like a stuff that I was doing because I was doing it. Like, oh, I just finished today's work. Let me drink a glass of wine.
Yep.
Until I realized, I don't really actually need the glass of wine. So yeah, I think like just checking your habits every once in a while to see, how it feels to live without it is like definitely like a great compromise. Because like drugs per se, I don't think are bad. It's just like how you interact with them and how they impact your life.
Yeah, and it's interesting in different cultures and all over the world because a lot of these things are very normalized, and it's not necessarily that it's a bad thing. It's just part of the culture, like French wine is incredible. So I'm sure, there's a lot of French people who are drinking wine regularly just because it's part of the culture. Southern California, I know so many people smoke weed because it's part of the culture here. And people tell you, oh, it's not bad, it's just what we do. When I was talking to Timmy Holiday, he says in Dublin, in Ireland, they go out to drink. It's just part of what they do, it's part of the culture. And so for somebody to not do that or go against the grain, it almost feels like wrong to not do it in a way, because it's just such a different solo path. But
yeah, we have like a very normalized alcohol culture in Germany. Like everyone's drinking beer all the time. And when I studied to be a teacher for physical education, and I did not drink for like 3 years. And like you can really, tell like people who are super confused if you're at a party and like you're not drinking. Like it's like you said, it's like so normalized that people question you for not taking alcohol or drugs or whatever.
Definitely.
So yeah, it's definitely something to keep in mind. How your surroundings impact your substance habits, I guess.
Well said. I would definitely agree with that. With back with the music, how did you get your first placement, or how did you connect with some of the artists and producers that you're working with now?
I got super lucky by sending some stuff to Des Wright. He was asking for like sample makers to log in with on a Insta story, and I just happened to watch the Insta story. I sent him a pack, and like he didn't reply, but like he was my. Oh, and by the way, I was talking to Des before that just about gear. Like I never asked him to send stuff. Just like, hey, I've seen you use the synths, whatever, blah blah blah. Every couple of weeks, just like nerd stuff. So like when the time came and he actually asked for samples, I was like, yo, I saw you asked for samples. Here's a link, whatever. And he didn't reply. And I was like, man, I really want to work with Des. He's like one of my favorite sample makers. So I didn't really want to let it slide that way. So I just hit him up again. I was like, hey, I know you only asked for 3 samples, but here's like 10 of my favorite samples. Here's a new link. And I just was a little incessant, It's a fine line between being annoying and, incessant or whatever. Yes. So yeah, I was surfing that line, trying to stay on the right side of it. And yeah, he replied like a couple days later. And I think what I got lucky with was that I was sending a lot of guitar stuff. And, like a lot of people in the trap world, they don't have the luxury of, being able to play or having access to guitars. So that was sort of something that maybe set my samples. Like I told you, like we all use the same chords, we all use the same instruments, it's like, if you get 20 packs, they will all, sound like trap samples,
Yes.
And I think like what set me apart at that time was like that I had some guitar ideas in there. And it was like, hey, I'm looking for like some guitar players to log in with, send some more stuff. And then we just kept working. I just kept sending Des like stuff every single week until like one day he hit me up and was like, yo, we got one with Leteca. That was my first song. And I remember I was playing ping pong with a friend of mine when I got the text and was like, who's this Leteca guy? And he had just dropped his huge singer. I got black, I got white.
What you want? Yeah, that song. I forget the name of it right now.
Yeah. And with the Cole Bennett video, I guess. And I never heard of him. And I was like, yeah, it's cool. It's nice. But I wasn't stoked because I didn't, know the guy. But then, when the record came out and I listened to the whole project, I was like, yo, this kid is actually really dope. And the record did really well. So that was my first placement. So shout out to Des, my man.
Yeah, Des Wright is amazing. I need to get him on the podcast. He would definitely be somebody worth speaking to.
For sure.
Hey, if you got the plug, we'll see if we can make it happen.
Hey.
What is some helpful advice you would give to sample makers or producers trying to connect with artists or other producers?
I think maybe think about like a unique selling point, because like everyone's making music, everyone's making good music, and everyone is DMing everyone. So like even if you're not lit, even if you don't have placements and only like 600 followers or whatever, you will have kids in your DMs asking to send stuff. And it's just true. Imagine like the times X that goes for OZ or like Murder. Like if you got like 10 kids in your DMs with like 1,000 followers, just imagine the DM request of like these really lit producers.
Yeah.
So think about that. Like what makes you unique in like 20, 30 DMs? I think that's first of all something to keep in mind. Like no one knows you, no one cares about you, so you have to make them care about you. Give them a reason to care about you. That can be by sending exceptional music, being funny, sending memes, asking them about, personal, whatever it is that sets you apart from the crowd.
That's very smart advice. I would wholeheartedly agree with that. Definitely having to do something that sets you apart and makes you shine a little bit more. And I love the idea of even sending memes, being funny. That's going to be the thing that really
that's how I locked in with like
nice.
A couple of people. Like some kids just started sending me memes, and I was like, yo, I like this guy, whatever. And then like after like 2 months, they were like, can I send you samples? And that's when I already cared about them. Like that's when we already had a relationship. And wasn't like because like you get like these you fire let's work DMs every single, and like the amount of time it would take me to reply like, thank you so much for reaching out. I'm kind of working on my own samples, so I don't really flip other people's samples, but thank you so much, really means a lot. Responding that would take way longer than the yo, let's work DM.
Yes.
So like if I feel like my response would take longer than your effort, I'm not even gonna respond. So you don't have to, write your life story, but just, show that you care, like you just said, like, hey, I really like the Elijah song that you put out. Or like, I think it's really weird what the guitars are doing on the overseas stuff. Just like something that shows me like you paid attention.
Yes.
That's already enough to, make me also care about you, but like this, yo, my G stuff, that's so easy to, it's so easy to send the same DM to like 100 people. Nothing against keeping it short, but like also, show that you care about the other person.
Yeah, show that there's an actual genuine level of interest in what they're doing. Like before I did this podcast, I didn't just write a list of questions to ask you. I've sat and listened to all your sample packs. I listened to your placements. I listened, what makes Stoopid Lou iconic on these samples. Like, oh, it's his guitar tones. It's the certain beats that he ends up being placed on. It's his approach to music that I can hear. I can hear like I told you with the overseas stuff. I could hear the approach to guitar wasn't typical, and and I had to ask you about it. Those kind of real being thoughtful, I guess, is really what it is. Be thoughtful and show that you're genuinely interested in this person, not just in the opportunities you think you can get through that person.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's always like a weird feeling when you feel like people treat you as an opportunity machine, and you're like, bro, I'm just trying to make nice music. Don't hit me up because I work with this and this person.
Yes.
Like Oh, and also like a good tip for like networking tip for, Insta DMs is to add like a screen recording of like your favorite sample or whatever. Because then they don't have to, because like if I'm on the toilet scrolling through my like Insta requests and it's like a Dropbox link, I'm like, I don't really want to go all the way out there. But if it's like a video, like a preview of a sample, I can just,
Listen
tap
to
it
it right
in
there.
listen right there. And then that just gives me like a rough idea if that's something that's unique and, fun to work with or whatever. So yeah, I think like the perfect Insta DM is just like keep it short, but show that you care, show that it's not like one of those DMs that you send to everyone, attach a sample and, keep it moving.
Yeah, I love that. Be genuine and then have your resume. Make it as easy for that person that you're reaching out to give you a direct answer. Don't make it hard for them to like anything that takes more effort than them sitting right there. Like you said, if I can't sit on the toilet and just figure out if my answer is yes or no, it's probably too much effort on the other person's part.
And I think like something to also keep in mind is that like everyone is busy. So make it as easy as possible for them to use your stuff. And don't take it personal if they don't respond.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with you. Like I had some people, like some friends who got ignored by like bigger producers. Then they had a placement and like these bigger producers reached out and they were like, now he's coming around, now that I'm lit. But I was like, bro, he was just busy and didn't know you. You had no like song, no proof of concept. It is not personal. They just gotta, make sure. Like I said, it's really hard to manage your time in this industry because like there's so much opportunities coming at your way. And, if someone asks me to send samples or wants to send samples, if I don't respond, it's maybe because I'm overworked or, and the same goes for Murder Beats. If he doesn't respond, he's just trying to manage his time. So like once you have like one or two big songs, Murder might see, okay, here's proof of concept. Here's someone who's, whose stuff has been used before. So now I'll give it a go, being on the toilet, listening to whatever they sent me. So yeah, just keep in mind, like everyone's busy, make them care for you. And if they don't care right away, don't take it personal. It's just like, it is what it is. We're all, trying to use our time the best way we can.
I agree. Al Hug even told me when he was sending OZ samples, he sent him a pack, didn't download it, sent him another pack, didn't download it. He had sent him packs like one a month for a little while. Until one day, Al Hug checked his email and saw that just one day out of the blue, OZ downloaded everything, after months of sending him stuff. So don't think just because you don't get the immediate satisfaction of somebody downloading and using your stuff right away that the opportunity is lost. Just keep your head down, sure. Keep staying the course, and it'll eventually come to fruition if it's meant to.
For sure. No need to get hung about. If you're like locked in with like some people and they stop responding to you, don't let it get to your head. They just, opened the DM. And once it's opened, it's easier to forget. So, they opened the DM, forgot about it, didn't text you back. It's not like something you said. It's not like something you did. It's not like you said, send trash. They just got caught up, and it's so important to just keep it moving. Don't take it personal, keep it moving, keep sending, keep staying professional, keep sending out music every once a week, every once in a while. Just keep it moving. I think, that's the biggest advice, I guess.
It's way cooler to be the guy who's kept a level head and has been positive the whole time, even if somebody didn't get back to you, than it is to be that guy who gets emotional and overreactive and be like, well, fuck you then so you don't want to work with me or whatever. It's like, no. Keep a level head, always be that cool guy, and it'll definitely come back to you in a better way because you maintain that positive energy.
For sure. Like, that's like something that people always say, like, check your ego. It's like, don't, take stuff personal if people are busy, and it has literally nothing to do with you. People are just trying to make a living. And if you happen to be there at the right time, it's great. But if they get caught up,
it is what it is.
It is what it is, man.
Yeah. Well said. All right, we'll move on to my next section. This is called For the Nerds. This is kind of more about the plugins and the background, the technical side of stuff. What are some of your most regularly used plugins or VSTs?
Soothe, for sure. The go-to plugin.
One.
Yeah.
It's the best.
I couldn't live without it. Let me think. Guitar Rig, maybe. That's a good one. I do like the Pultec emulations, kind of, to give you that warm EQ sound.
Definitely.
It's always nice to take out a little bit of the high end to make it sound more vintage, or add high end without make it sound like too brash or whatever.
I would agree.
Just gives like a nice warm texture to your stuff. The wave stuff, always, the H delay, the compressor, it's just like very good sounding. I feel like it's the working man's plugins. They just do what they're supposed to do. It's not flashy, but they're very reliable.
I agree. I don't have the Apollo UAD plugins or anything, and I rely solely on those waves, on that Pisces Child compressor, that Pisces Tech EQ, the Pultec emulation, the Fairchild emulation, the R comp, the RVox. RVox is an amazing compressor that I feel like people definitely need to be using on vocals more. So if you don't use RVox, definitely use it.
I don't think I have RVox. I got the Gold bundle. I'm not sure if it's part of the Gold bundle.
If you have Renaissance, if you have RComp, it's part of that RComp thing.
Okay. I might have to.
You'll definitely have it. It's what Jason Joshua uses on all of his vocals, and I don't know if you know who Jason Joshua is, but he's,
of course,
he's the GOAT engineer, and I paid for the Mix with the Masters subscription and stuff, where you learn, where he's showing you his Logic sessions, or I'm sorry, his Pro Tools sessions, where he's showing you.
Would you recommend it? Because I was thinking about doing it.
I'll say this. Don't ever pay to go to school when you could pay for Mix with the Masters, because it's way better to learn from these people who are making all the hits and are relevant and doing maybe even the hits that you've heard in the past. And I feel like learning from them is way better than just going to school and somebody telling you how a compressor works. And for me, I can say from experience, Jason Joshua's videos alone on that website paid for the whole thing. He shows you his vocal chain, and he even says, this is the same vocal chain I use every time. It doesn't change. It just, the vocal is the only thing that changes.
Okay. Good to know. Because I wanted to get really good at engineering this year, and that sounds nice. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he shows you everything in there. I'm talking he's showing the song is Rosalia. He's breaking down Malamente, and he's showing you,
ooh,
this is her vocal chain. This is what I did to the drums to make them slap. This is what I do to the bass to make it cut through on phone speakers. This is what I do. This is the mix. This is the mastering chain. And even in that video, he says, this mastering chain that I use is the same one I use every time. I just always adjust the mix going into this master chain. But this is the mastering chain I use on every song you hear.
Damn, okay.
Definitely worth it.
You just convinced me. Yeah, you just convinced me to sign up, man.
Awesome. Well, definitely would recommend it. It would be worth your time.
Nice.
What are some of your favorite effects and ways to process guitars?
Definitely Guitar Rig is a big one. I do like the stock plugins, the guitar pedal stock plugins from Logic. They sound really nice. They have some really good stuff in there. I'm a sucker for cassette. I have to admit. It's just, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can use it for. You can use the input, if you turn it all the way up, as a really nice sort of compression distortion situation, and you don't really have to use all of the other knobs. You can turn them off, sort of. Just the distortion alone in that sounds nice. The compression sounds nice. I use it for stereo imaging, to make the signals wider or, more narrow. not necessarily only for the detune aspect of it. Most of the times that I use it, I don't even use the detune, like the typical cassette sound. I just really like it for sculpting, the guitar into like something more warm and vintage, I guess.
I love that. And what are your most regularly used instruments or pieces of gear that you have?
Definitely like this $130 Squire. It's just like a standard Strat. And I had like a fancy Fender for like over $1,000 or whatever. But I like this cheap one way more. I don't know. Especially like if it's not like a singer HD instrument that you put, like usually in a hip hop song, like the guitar is not the main focus. It's sort of like buried underneath like the vocals and drums or whatever. So you can get away with like a $120 guitar. That song has been, on like really big, that guitar has been on like really big songs. So like,
it's not about having the most expensive, crazy guitar you can afford.
Yeah, for sure. Although I would say, like, talking about gear, I do have the UAD Aero interface, and like a good preamp for your guitar definitely does wonders. I think like crazy expensive guitar on like a shitty preamp doesn't sound as good as like a shitty guitar on a really good preamp. So I would say like definitely, first thing, invest in a good audio interface. And then it really doesn't matter what stuff you feed into it. They like the converters are gonna, work their magic. I have this parlor guitar. Wait, I'm gonna grab it.
Yeah.
This one.
Nice.
It's parlor because like the body is a little bit smaller than usual Western guitars, which takes some of the sustain away, which is really nice for not overcrowding your sample. Because like I have like a proper guitar over there, like a proper Western guitar, but like with the strong body and like with the long sustain of the notes, sometimes the guitar feels too big. Like it takes up too much space. So I really like the tiny parlor guitar for like my acoustic stuff. And then like I just recently got Scorch by Source Audioware from my best friend Jacob.
Nice.
And that's like definitely something that I've been using like obsessively for like the last 2 weeks. And let me think. Yeah, like everyone, I use the Arturia Analog Labs situation.
It's definitely a goated plugin, especially with everybody making the analog lab banks in the sample maker community. I love that I love that in the community right now there's a lot of people making tools for other sample makers, not just samples alone, but there's ways to give back to the community and still make some money on the side through being creative in other ways other than just making samples. Yeah,
for sure. I just really love like stuff that makes the creative process easy or like intuitive, because I don't really want to spend 3 hours tweaking a bass guitar until it sounds like a 60s. It's like it's something that I do if I have to, but if there's a way for me to get it in like 30 seconds, then I take that option, and I don't need to spend like forever to tweak a synthesizer to make it sound like good. If there's a preset that works, I will use it. Like, like sometimes the sound design can get in the way of getting your, sometimes you really need the sound design in order to express the idea you have in your head, and you really have to, find out creative ways to make that, like your thoughts a reality or whatever. But it's just something that I have to do. It's not necessarily something that I want to do or take pride in if it takes me like 3 hours to figure out like a synth sound. If I can use a preset that sounds nice to get the musical idea out there, then I will use that every single time. I would say like any plugin that's good sounding right off the bat is like that's why I fuck with Scorch so much. Because like if I have an idea, I can pull up like 3-4 piano sounds, and like one of those will sound good enough for me to, think of like another melody or whatever, and not get lost in, taking a stock plugin and adding like all of these effects for like 55 minutes, just like so the piano sounds interesting. And then I can make a melody on top of it, So yeah, like all of my favorite plugins are the ones that, sound good fairly quickly. Yeah. So I can just focus on the music, like I do, like sound design and, but
not every day.
Yeah, it's not like on some days I take like pride in like how, nerdy I can get with the sound design stuff. But mostly I'm just doing it because I have to, like if my guitar would sound like perfect right off the bat, I wouldn't, spend, a lot of time tweaking it. It's just like something that we have to do in order to, make stuff great sounding. But it's not like something that I take, great, like, it's not something that boosts my ego. It's just like something that I have to do, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same reason why we save those effect rack presets or like, all of those effect chains as presets is because we're trying to expedite the process and make it quicker, not have to sit there and be like, how am I going to pull up an interesting sine wave pad? You're like, oh no, I already made one. I got it in the bank. Let's go.
Yeah. Like anything that eliminates, what stands between you and getting the idea out there, is great.
I agree. Do you play all the instruments that we hear in your sample packs?
What do you mean by play?
Like you play the guitars, obviously. Those are usually real. Those aren't MIDI guitars. Mm-hmm. And then like synths or like pianos or those kind of things, or are those kind of programmed?
I just recently got this piano here. So now I'm playing all of my stuff because I had like piano lessons as a kid.
Oh, nice.
But for the longest time, I only had my laptop. So like, and the interface. So I would only record guitars, and like all of the piano, all of the synthesizers were usually made on a laptop.
Okay, nice. I like that you're moving more towards playing in that kind of stuff now, because those are injecting any amount of human element you can in the sample. I feel like is the most important thing at the end of the day.
For sure. Like I was, like so, nerdy with how to get stuff sound like human when it's made on a laptop. I would, move around the notes like when I hit a chord, just so it sounds like more human, and I would, dial in the velocity for every single note and switch it up as the, chord progresses, and then I would play the piano on my speakers and record them with a phone, and then just use the phone recording so it sounds like the piano
in a room.
Were played in a room. All of the stuff to make it sound human. But like now that I actually have a piano here, I can just, set up my phone here, hit record, and then just play some stuff. And it's like, it's the same thing. I just don't have to go through like so many hoops to make it sound like a human thing.
Yeah, that's definitely amazing, a way of making music now. What are some of the essential elements that you gravitate towards when you're making a sample?
Chords, I guess. I always start with chords. I hardly ever start with a sound or like a melody. It's always, because I feel like once you got that down, it's really easy to add stuff on top of it. So yeah, always start like with like any progression that makes me feel something. And like once I have something, because like the resolution or whatever has to make me feel like if the chord goes to a place that doesn't really, feel great, I don't even put the effort in to, take the sample anywhere. But like one, as long as I, as soon as I have like a chord progression that makes me go like, oh, this is really satisfying to, resolve that way, or it's really weird to not resolve it, or whatever. So yeah, I always start from like a chord perspective, I guess. Other essentials, I'm not sure. It's like a trial every single time, I just yeah, it's whatever. Sometimes you start with like a synthesizer, sometimes with a guitar, sometimes with a piano, sometimes with like textures or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's always structured around chords for me.
I love that. It's like the chords are the foundational framework of the sample, and they kind of let you be open enough and let you guide the other instruments in a certain direction that you're looking for.
Also, like sometimes I take out the chords in the end because like they are still implied in the melodies and bass notes, you know.
Of course.
But like the implied chords still have to, you know, feel a certain way. So yeah.
I love that. How important is leaving space in your samples and productions, whether that's space between chords or leaving out the bass?
I think like it's one of the most important things, and like one of the things I struggle most with. Because it's so easy if you don't have the final song and you want to feel like you earn like, you know, your title or it's your job to do crazy sound design shit, and then you fill every pocket with like small synthesizer beeps or whatever, or like weird percussion loops. But yeah, that's something that I'm trying to get better and I'm working on every single day. Because, yeah, it's, you know, the final song, it is not our show. You know, it's the artist. We just, you know, deliver like the emotional background or like fundament of the song, but we're not supposed to take up more sound than, or like more sonic space than the vocalist.
Yes.
And so I find myself like making simpler and simpler loops these days. I like take out a lot of the stuff. Sometimes it's nice to have like very small textures here and there, like, you know, really subtle perk loop or whatever. But yeah, I try to be very mindful of because yeah, the space that we don't occupy in the sample is open for like the artist. And so yeah, I think like a good sample should always keep in mind that it's about the artist at the end of the day.
Well said. You know, we're pieces of the puzzle. We don't need to give them the whole complete puzzle for the artist to not have space to do anything.
For sure. And I also feel maybe it's like an ego thing, you know, like filling it up, you know, just to make people go like, oh, wow. You know, but like no one really cares about you at the end of the day. I mean, like people in Walmart, you know, people, you know, wherever they listen to your song, they do not care about, you know, the guitar slide you added in there with like a Valhalla reverb at 100%.
No.
They just, you know, care about the 2-note melody that you can actually hear, you know.
Well said.
I mean, nothing against textures, but like, yeah, I just try to check myself if I'm adding stuff just to feel, you know.
Yeah,
good
textures.
About, yeah.
Textures are kind of like the garnish on top of the dish, but people are eating it for the meat and potatoes of the dish.
Yeah.
Definitely. What are your favorite ways to transform or reshape a sound, or ways that maybe you feel aren't being used enough?
It's maybe resampling, like playing a guitar or like a synthesizer and then just putting it into a sampler and see where that takes the, you know, melody. And then but I feel like that's something that a lot of people do, so it's not like the craziest idea. I'm not sure. I think like a great idea is always to use plugins for stuff that they are not intended for. So, you know, like just, you know, put a crazy distortion on everything and then just put like the isotope stuff that removes distortion. Just to see, you know, and then like turn up the only the output that it removes or the other way around, you know. Just like make plugins work really hard or, you know, just like, yeah, just fuck around, you know, like if I want to do something new, I try to use a plugin for stuff that it's not intended for, you know. Turn up stuff like all the way, like 100%, and or at 0%, but like other parameters all the way up. So, you know, like there's like some internal struggle in the plugin.
Yeah.
So, I just try to, you know, make my plugins work in ways they are not intended for. That sometimes leads me to, I mean, 80% of the time, it's just weird noise.
Yeah.
To be honest, but like, if it works, it's a vibe for sure.
I agree. One couple things that like I've picked up along the way that like really interest me, or ways that people transform a sound, would be XY Nothing talks about he'll use Melodyne and then he'll like formant shift on his guitars. Like that's one thing that's like, okay, that's different. One thing that I recently picked up through watching T.Y. Jake, I was watching him. He had an Instagram live the other day where he was in the studio and he was working with his friend who was playing guitar, and Jake was messing with the like the delay times and things on this delay pedal on the guitar. And I was like, he was getting like weird, like just crazy texture, like tone things. And so I was like, let me try doing that in the box. And so now I just started like trying like recording guitar loops, and I'll put Echo Boy on there and I'll set the delay to milliseconds, and then I'll automate the delay just to go like somebody turned the knob real quick. And you start getting these weird, you know, like feedbacky, like crazy sounds. Yeah. So stuff like that.
I think like automation is also like a huge thing. You know, like automation is where you can get really freaky. Like something that I tried the other day that sounded really nice is you can go into, you know, I think in Logic it's called ledge mode, where you make them learn MIDI signals. Mm-hmm. And then you just flick between presets.
Wow.
Which usually like turns all like every single preset on the synth. But now you recorded like all of that movement between like those two presets. And then like you have a sound morph into another one. That's, you know, stuff. I mean, you have to, it's like if you push the switch preset button, it's like a very hard cutoff. So you have to, you know, draw them out to be like more
smooth.
You know, smooth, yeah. But that's something that can lead to like really crazy stuff.
Yeah, I feel like not just letting the plugins be static all the time, and really like kind of like giving life to the plugin itself.
Yeah, for sure. Like I'm a huge sucker for volume automation. Like every single sample I make is like volume automated. Because like I feel there's a certain bounce that you can add by, you know, being very intentional about the volume. Like you can, you know, have your guitar dip when like another note is coming in, and it sort of adds this weird, you know, counter response. I don't know, whatever. So like volume automation is definitely goated.
Yeah, it makes the music more dynamic at the end of the day. You're adding in these elements that don't make it just so static, and it ends up being more interesting to your ear, I feel like, because whether you consciously or subconsciously realize it, like there is a change happening inside of the tune.
Yeah, I think like people sleep on, you know, how crazy velocity plays into like rhythm. So like the same note in different velocities can feel like a rhythm, you know what I mean? So just keeping that in mind, that velocity is a form of, you know, bounce, definitely can make your entire sample be, you know, just have a little bit more, you know, swing.
I agree. Like velocity on hi-hats is so essential for me. Velocity on ghost notes of drums, like having a snare in there in between that's super quiet, or like rolls into something, you know, not just like a clap on the 3, but maybe you have like some claps that are volume automated to go into it, you know, that roll. Yeah. They definitely add that extra bounce.
For sure.
What is some secret sauce that you wish you had known earlier on when you started out making music?
Just starting with good sounds. I was using like the stock 808 sounds in Logic. They have like a built-in 808 whatever drum machine. Mm-hmm. And I was like, why can I make it says 808, why can I make it sound like the stuff that I listen to when people talk about 808s?
Yeah.
Until I realized, like it's so important to get stuff that sounds where you don't have to, spend like ages to just make your snare, hit. I would spend like parallel compression or whatever, slightly distorting, like having 3 different, buses to rub my snare to just to make it sound nice.
Yeah.
And now I just go on Splice and find like a nice snare, and that's 10 times better than the one that I designed myself. So just start with good sounds. And then you don't have to EQ so much if you let your instruments live where they feel comfortable. So like,
yes,
I would start like, when I would start, I would take like a piano up here and try to make it live down here. And I would remove the high frequencies and pitch it down and push them like some middle. And it was like something where the piano wasn't naturally living. And I was just like forcing it to go into that space. And like guitars that would, be played in register somewhere around here, I would, take it all away and form on shift just to push out the highs. And all of the elements didn't really, sit where they naturally wanted to be. So now when I have like I feel like my piano, I like the chords, but the piano's too low. I transpose it like an octave too high. And if it feels too high, an octave too high, I try to do some like inversions and like switch the register of the chords to the EQ frequencies I want to have them. So yeah,
that's way smarter.
For sure, like it saves me so much time with the equalizing and compression, because like if all of the elements roughly sit where they naturally would sit, you don't have to do all of this heavy processing and lifting. You just have to make sure they don't collide with the other stuff, and they you can accentuate like some of the nice stuff. So yeah, that's a huge stuff. Like use your instruments and your chords and your melodies as a way of equal, think of them like a equalizer or whatever. And also think of your mixing, like your channel strip, as a sort of equalizer. It's like if you think about it, it's like a huge equalizer.
Definitely.
Just getting the levels right. And like once all of the levels are right, once of the, stuff is musically aligned, then you can, go crazy with the sound design stuff. Yeah, and I was spending entirely too much time, fixing stuff that was, that I should have fixed on the musical side of things and not on the mixing side of things. So yeah, just,
write your parts
you don't
where
have to,
the music lives in their natural places, and then it'll save you time as far as processing in the long run.
Yeah, for sure. Like, that's definitely, that's huge. Collaboration, maybe. I wasn't like collaborating too much when I, started making beats. And like everything changed for me when I started, working with like other people.
Yeah.
So I think starting with good sounds, think of like the musical idea first before you think about the sound design. Are the chords nice? Are the chords where they're supposed to be, like in a register? And then you can take the sound design and then, work with other people. And I think those 3 things are definitely, and also like always send out your stuff. Like I was so self-conscious about my music that I didn't go any places for like years. And I was like, why I'm not going places? It's because like no one knew I was making music, because I didn't send it to like enough people, because I was so self-conscious. So that's also like a huge step, like, like sending out your stuff to a lot of people.
I love that. That's definitely a helpful piece of advice that I feel myself I should listen to more, is just sending out stuff you make. And you never know where it's going to end up, or if somebody's going to love the thing that, like we were talking about, that maybe you didn't love it when you made it, but you created something, and somebody you send it to, that could be their favorite sample they've ever heard.
Yeah, it's crazy when it happens. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I would agree. I would definitely agree with that. All right, we'll move on to my final 5. These are my last 5 questions for you. They can be 1 sentence or 1 word. They don't have to be very long if you don't want them to be, but you can elaborate on them if you feel like you should. What is something you wish more people did in their music?
It's about how it feels, not about how it sounds.
Well said. I love that. What is something that used to be important to you that you no longer care about?
Mixing. I think like a good musical idea will always work.
I love that. Well said. What would you say is the best way for a sample maker to improve their samples?
Listen to the stuff that you love, the stuff that makes you love samples with like headphones, and really pay attention. Like write down all of the instruments you can hear, write down the effects you think they are on them, write down the chord changes. Just build a vocabulary of stuff that, for the stuff that you love, so you can understand and, build some, understanding of what it is that makes you love these ideas.
I love that. That is definitely a piece of advice I'm going to take back into my own work. What is the worst advice you've ever received?
Maybe take your time.
Yeah.
Like put it out and improve as you go, but like don't hold back until you reach perfection. And also like close mouths don't get fat. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
Just make sure your stuff lives out there in the world, and then you can always improve.
Well said. And my final question for you is, what is the best advice you've ever received?
Maybe it's kind of esoterical, but like the man who doesn't know where he wants to go, no wind is favorable. So you definitely have to have some, because like I always wanted to have like a song with Drake, and I just didn't take the steps to even get into the position where that was a possibility. So like if you want to work with Don Toliver, set that specific goal and break down, all the smaller steps that you need to take there. Who's working with Don Toliver? Who's the engineers? What is the sound? Like, how can I recreate the sound? And then just try to put yourself into a world where working with Don Toliver becomes a possibility. So you need to have a clear intention of like, don't just have the intention of, I want to make it, I want to be a platinum producer, but like be very specific about the stuff that you want. Because like once a goal is specific, you can understand and break down the steps you need to go there. So like have a vision and be specific about it, and then just reverse engineer how to get there.
Well said. That is definitely a great piece of advice that I'm going to hold dear to my own heart right there. Have that specific intention, and you can definitely formulate the roadmap to get there. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for all your time today with me, Lou. You've shared countless gems of information, an amazing perspective on creating music, on networking, on getting your work out there, and just moving through the industry and moving through your creation with good intentions and getting to a great end result. And I'm definitely going to be watching you progress. Can't wait to see the next placement, the next artist you put me on to, whether indirectly or directly. And I'm just happy to watch you grow, and I'm glad I could be a part of the journey.